And Frankie Fascineri has found the back of the net.
Well, good afternoon and good evening, Canada, and welcome to the 2025 Canadian Premier League U Sports Draft, presented proudly by our fantastic partners at Degree. This is an annual tradition that actually dates back to before a CPL match had even been played, with the inaugural draft taking place on the 12th of November, 2008. And since then, U Sports has remained interwoven as a big, important piece of the fabric of the Canadian Premier League. 89 different players have heard their names called in the draft since 2018. 57 of those players have gone on to sign a deal with the CPL, whether on a U Sports permit or even 22 professional contracts. So obviously an incredibly exciting day for the players who declared for the draft, their coaches, their family, their support systems, who are eager to see who will be a part of the 16-player class for 2025. My name is Adam Jenkins, a proud alumnus of Toronto Metropolitan University, class of 2018. So in a lot of ways, this draft is near and dear to my heart as well. It's where I got my start in broadcasting, and it's been a pleasure to host this draft the last 2 years and now into today's edition. We will be joined by representatives from each of the 8 clubs as the picks are selected, as well as the Commissioner Mark Noonan and Executive Vice President Kostas Smirniotis to announce the draft picks. But let's show you how that order looks, how the draft will actually take place here today, as well as a couple of bits of housekeeping in terms of who is eligible for this draft. So the most important thing right away is to tell you that the draft order was determined by the results of the standings by year end. Valour, who finished 8th in the regular season, will pick first, followed by Vancouver and the Halifax Wanderers. From there, picks 4 through 8 were determined by order of elimination from the Canadian Premier League playoffs through to the champions, Cavalry FC. This is not a snake order draft. Picks 1 through 8 will be made, and then picks 9 through 16 will follow the identical order: Valour, Vancouver, Halifax, Pacific, York United, Atletico Ottawa, Forge, and Cavalry. So the eligibility for the CPL U Sports Draft is quite simple. Any underclassmen with 1 to 4 years of U Sports eligibility left who are also planning to return to school next year could declare for the draft. From that list, 16 players were chosen who will join a group of players who have come through this draft and found incredible levels of success. One of the greatest exports to date of the CPL U Sports Draft is Garven Metusala, the former Concordia Stinger, and he's joined now by Christian Jack. Okay, well,
joined by Garven Metusala, arguably the finest draft pick in CPL history, the first ever CPL Centurion to be drafted in the U Sports Draft as well. It could be a special day. It is a special day for 16 student athletes who could change their football careers forever. Yours was January 2021. Garv, what do you remember about that day?
So I remember being at work, and I couldn't watch the draft because I was working basically as a security agent. Okay. And one of my friends called me and this friend doesn't usually call me, so he calls me and he told me congratulations, and I was like, why are you telling me congratulations? And he's like, you got drafted. And I said, by who? And he said, by Forge, which was a really big surprise for me. I didn't expect that at all. So I remember that day like it was yesterday.
That's fantastic. Now, obviously, you went to Concordia. You didn't get to play because of COVID, but you did play prior to that in college. As soon as you got into the professional environment with Forge, what did you notice about that environment compared to when you were a student athlete?
So everything's just so professional. Like, everything's just so professional. And especially, I'd say the players, huge gap between, example, university and even League One. I think in terms of players, the quality was, in terms of mistake, there was way less mistakes. And I remember my first day there, I was telling myself, wow, this is CPL soccer. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. Yeah. So that really shocked me.
Less than a year after getting drafted, you end up playing in a Canadian Premier League final and in CONCACAF competitions, which is a phenomenal achievement, by the way. Now, 3 years later, do you look back at that and sometimes pinch yourself that it was such a rapid rise?
Sometimes, yeah, especially that first year. I remember after that first year, a lot of people came to me and they told me, do you realize how crazy your journey's been? And because a year before there was COVID, you couldn't really play. I played, I think it was maybe 10 games with in the League One Quebec, and a year later, I get interest from the national team, and then we play CONCACAF games, and then I'm in the CPL final. We finished first also that season, so it was sometimes I just think about it and I see how crazy it is.
And you mentioned the national team.
Yeah.
CPL helped you get that recognition for
Yeah.
Haiti. You've now got obviously double-digit caps. I know you just missed the last camp because of the injury, and you, of course, missed the CPL final. And so best wishes with that. But how special is it for you to be on the international stage and play that kind of football?
Oh, that's probably, I think, I'd say my biggest achievement, representing my country. From my mom's side, representing a country is also so big, and it's always a pleasure to just put the national team jersey and represent your country. And especially last year in the Gold Cup or the World Cup qualifiers that we got this year, it's just so big, and you see how heavy the jersey is, and it's just a good feeling and good pressure.
You've done great for international team. Now you've done amazing for your club team as well. It's 4 seasons already.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. 4 seasons, 4 finals. You're obviously playing for a team that expects to win every match. How have you enjoyed it so far? What do you take from the first 4 seasons as a pro?
I think those 4 years were amazing. So every year I got to win something. My first year we didn't win the final, but we finished first. We qualified for Champions League. Then we got 2 playoff trophies in a row, and then this year we lost the final, but we still finished first with it, which is a trophy as well. So I'd say it was really a 4-year it was successful 4 years, and I think I really grew as a player. I think Forge really helped me a lot grow as a man. And I remember my debut, and I remember my last game this season. I think there's two different people, 2 different Garvin, so it really helped me big time.
How are you different? Like, what is the difference now as in all of those, both as on and off the pitch?
I'd say I'm more mature, and I think I became also more mature on the pitch. I just in the way I play, I used to be a bit more, let's say, instinctive. Now I really think about what I'm doing, and I'm trying to be more of a leader. I think I'm considered a leader in the team, and I think other players see me as well as that. I try to be the one who gives advice to other players, because obviously when I was here my first year, there were players that had that job and came to help me. Now I'm trying to give back to the younger players. And I'd say outside the pitch is just living on your own for 3-4 years away from family. You just have to grow as a man, and I've learned how to pay all this stuff, pay my bills, cooking, stuff like that. So I just think it really helped me going away from home at such a young age.
Well, listen, man, you're a shining light, a great representative of the draft and your family. Before I let you go, we're about to get 16 players drafted for the new class of the U Sports Draft. What advice would you give these young players now as they hear their names called today, as they embark on a professional career?
So obviously we know that when you get drafted, it's not, you don't sign right away. You got to prove yourself. So just get ready really before that, and expect the level to be high. If you have an idea of the level, think it's even higher. So get ready to work, and when you get there, just don't stress. Think about what's your qualities and play on that.
As I said, you've had a fantastic career so far. You're still embarking on a brilliant career with Forge and in the Canadian Premier League. Garven Metusala, drafted in 2021, a shining light in the CPL. Thank you, my friend, and we'll see you soon. Best wishes for the holiday season.
Thanks to you. Happy holidays.
Well, thank you, Christian, and thank you, Garven. I think KJ did a pretty good job outlining some of Garven's achievements thus far, and there will be many more still to be written. But let's maybe fill in the outline a little bit, color it in some more of the details from this young man drafted by Forge in 2021. Over 100 appearances for the Hamilton professional side across all competitions. That is 8,000 pro minutes for Garven. The 2022-2023 CPL champion and the Shield winner in 2024. 11 times capped for the Haitian national team, and 10 appearances in continental club competition, crisscrossing CONCACAF and in continuing to improve as a professional day in and day out. So we are always excited to celebrate the past success stories, but it's time now to welcome you to the future and the present of the Canadian Premier League for 2025. And with that, we go to Commissioner Mark Noonan for some opening remarks in the introduction of the first pick.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Welcome everybody to the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft. It's great to be here. We talk a lot about the League of Opportunity and CPL being the League of Opportunity for Canadian athletes in the U Sports system. We've seen it year in and year out, incredible contributions from these players, from these schools, and it's one of the key building blocks to our league. And so we're really excited to welcome a new class of draftees and look forward to them making their marks in the upcoming seasons. So without delay, I'd like to announce that the first overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft for Valour FC, they select Javante Lane from Toronto Metropolitan University.
So TMU has a first overall draft pick as the Pride of Brampton, Ontario joins Owen Shepherd, Anthony White, Jose Cunha, Thomas Gardner, Corey Bent, and Gabby Bitar as first overall selections. I actually had the privilege of speaking with Philip Prostrand today, who described this young man as electrifying, someone who loves to press, very coachable. Absolutely brilliant season as well in League One Ontario with Simcoe County Rovers, a season that even saw Javante step on the field at BMO Field in the Canadian Championship against Toronto FC. Vancouver FC, you are now on the clock, and I say good evening to Daryl Fordyce, the assistant coach of Valour, who joins us now to talk about the first overall selection. Daryl, great to have you. What was it about Mr. Lane that ticked all the boxes for you and was enough to say, yep, that's our first overall pick?
Yeah, well, you can see from his past few seasons, he scores a lot of goals. He does a lot of talking on the pitch. He's got all the attributes to become a very good striker in the CPL. You can see he plays with a lot of bravery. He imposes himself in and around the box. And, you know, he's got the athleticism to go with it. He likes to run in behind. He likes to work hard. So that's what ticked all the boxes for us. And we really look forward to having him in, and hopefully we can improve his game.
Well, and Daryl, obviously it's a position that Valour is looking to improve upon. All clubs in the CPL, you can never have too many strikers, but something else that stood out to me when I spoke with Coach Prostrand of TMU was that this is a coachable player. Yes, sir, no, sir, go to work and loves the details of the game. You've played in this league. You've had an incredible professional career. How important are those attributes to a young prospect that makes you say, this is someone we can work with?
Yeah, you have to be very coachable for sure. You have to be open to feedback from the coaches, and you have to be able to work as a team. You know, it's a team game. So he ticks all those boxes and comes across as a very, very good professional already. And yeah, as I say, he scores goals, and it's the hardest thing to do in football is to score goals.
Well, 23 goals across League One Ontario and U Sports this year. Daryl, we'll see you in the second round. Thank you for being here. And with that, we'll go back to Commissioner Mark Noonan for the second pick.
Good evening. With the second overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Vancouver FC select Henri Gobeau from the University of British Columbia.
Well, those are the national champion University of British Columbia Thunderbirds. Henri Gobeau, a U Sports Rookie of the Year nominee, Seattle, Washington born, holds a Canadian and an American passport, described as a pacey winger with great with both feet, can cross the ball, an excellent athlete, and contributed 10 goals and 8 assists with the UBC Thunderbirds under their head coach, Mike Mosier. So to talk about that pick, let's welcome into the program Afshin Gotby, who joins us from Langley. And with that, the Halifax Wanderers, you are on the clock. Coach Gotby, always great to see you. A young player with a high ceiling, especially on the wing, which is when we watch Vancouver FC play football, you love those creative wingers that can put the ball in the box. What was it about this young man that said, that told you and your staff that this is who we wanted to go with?
First of all, I want to say greetings from Netherlands. I'm in Holland. It's pouring rain, so I'm used to it from Vancouver. So I want to share with the fans. This young man is very special. I've watched him, and we've had some of our staff members follow him at the university level. Not only he has a very good education in the academy in youth in North America, but also he has 3 years of football education in Japan. At a club that I'm familiar with, Shonan, which is very close to Tokyo. And in my conversation with him, he comes across very focused, ambitious, and as you can see in his actions, He can create. He can play with both feet. He can score goals, and he's young enough that I think we can really help him develop and reach his dreams as a footballer.
And Afshin, it's been something that you and I have spoke about on multiple occasions throughout the season, finding that mixture of these young players that are coachable, like you just illustrated, but also that experience in a professional environment is really important to help that sort of seamless transition into perhaps a preseason camp, and for some of these players, maybe even a contract this season.
Yes, and I think also we really want to find local and talented players, and playing at one of the top universities, football universities in Canada. UBC is right down the street from us. So we're very happy to work with UBC, and they've been very good at developing players, and we've tapped into in the draft from UBC in the last 2 years. So I'm really happy to have him next season with us.
Anthony White certainly jumps to the front of mind, and of course the experience with Altitude FC as well. Coach Gottby, thank you. We'll see you in round number 2. And now back to the Commissioner, Mark Noonan, for the 3rd overall selection in this year's draft.
Thank you, Adam. With the 3rd overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, the Halifax Wanderers FC select Matthew Pava from McMaster University.
Well, the McMaster Marauders and their man, Matthew Pava from Georgetown, Ontario. Also through Screwsoppy and Sigma in League One Ontario. 2 game-winning goals this season with the Marauders. Described as a player with high technical proficiency, an excellent passing range, and ability to dribble out of the back, adding to that competency as a defender. And it was a great year, of course, for the Marauders. Their head coach Tristan Joyce taking home the OUA West Coach of the Year honors as well. That will put Pacific FC on the clock, and that will also put Patrice Geyser, the head coach of the Halifax Wanderers, on the screen. And Coach, you gave us a bit of a gift in the media yesterday by announcing a marquee signing so early in the offseason. You think the return of Julian Dunn from injury, now Thomas Meyer-Jaguer, you of course have the services of Nassim Mekidesh, and you go in and draft another young defender. Is that like a favorite position of yours or something, Patrice?
Yeah, for sure. You could say, why not? Listen, you can never get enough good defenders. And with some of the learnings that we took away with injuries and travel and the congested schedule, we just wanted to create a lot of competition for the players there. You know, we go back to my first year. Part of that was because we had so many strong defenders competing. And that's not to say this past year wasn't the same. So, yeah, it's certainly something we wanted to target.
And the success for Pava at Mac jumps off the page in a lot of ways for a defender, but also as someone who understands the League One Ontario system and the rigors that it takes to find success, both as a student athlete and in League One. That just must sort of give you more belief with your staff that this is a player that might be able to take that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that with all the defenders that you mentioned previously, they're, all of them are a little bit older. So with Matthew being a U21 player and a young player, we're going to invest in him. And for a player down the line, I think he holds the technical abilities, and he's played at a high level competition with OUA and also League One. So we know he's adaptable, can play on the right side or left side, and really fits a lot of the things that we look for.
Well, thank you very much, Patrice. I'm sure Wanderer supporters are excited to learn more about Matthew Pava. We'll head back to the Commissioner, Mark Noonan, for the 4th overall selection.
2025 CPL U Sports Draft. Pacific FC select Nicholas Halam from the University of Toronto.
Nicholas Halam of the University of Toronto Varsity Blues, your OUA East Rookie of the Year. 10 goals this season for the Blues in OUA play, a direct and experienced winger. He's both-footed as well, and obviously has a pretty significant connection to Vancouver Island in that he is a hometown boy from Victoria, BC. So I think the opportunity to try out for his professional club in his hometown will be an amazing opportunity, one that James Merriman knows a whole lot about with the Victorians in his group. The York United Club, you are next on the clock. James Merriman joins us now. James, first of all, on behalf of the CPL and everyone seeing you, congratulations on the addition to your family and an addition to Pacific, perhaps, with Mr. Halam. What do you like about the player?
Thank you, Adam. Nicholas is from the house. so to speak. He comes from our Vancouver Island Wave youth program. He joined us last preseason for majority of the preseason. So he's a player that we know very well. He's a good athlete, really good potential. And so we tracked him, and we were curious how he would do it his first season at U Sports. And I think he scored 11 goals and got off to a really good start, and he can play on the left and right. So he's a young player from our academy that we're excited about.
James, it's no secret that Pacific absolutely loves a creative winger with a lot of upside. And when you think about the players that should Nicholas get the invitation to join the camp to learn under, with the roster construction ongoing, of course, you had a third Victorian in the draft, or second Victorian in the draft, another British Columbian player, but it seems like the type of player that could have a profile to really work with your group.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great athlete, like I said, and he's very direct. He is always looking to create chances. He's always looking to get to goal, and he's proven to be quite clinical in his rookie season. So we're hoping that he can bring that into the preseason and see how he adapts to the level. But like I said, he showed quite well last year in preseason. So I expect him to be highly motivated from this. He's got time to train and come in and try to break into the group.
Well, James, our thanks to you. Our congratulations to Nick and his coach Ilya Orlov at the University of Toronto. And let's go to Mark Noonan again for the 5th overall selection.
With the 5th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, York United FC select Luca Achitola from York University.
Well, York once again goes drafting in their own backyard. This is the U Sports Rookie of the Year, the Lou Billick Award winner, developing under Carmen Asacco at York Lions Stadium. So the transition to the pitch should be seamless should Luca get an invitation to camp. A player that has spent time with Toronto FC, the Canadian youth programs as well. Started all 16 matches that he played for the Lions this year. A player that can slot in as a 10, as an 8, 12 goals contributed this season for the Woodbridge, Ontario native, and 4 in the last 6 for York. That will put Atletico Ottawa on the clock, and that will put Mauro Eustachio in the hot seat, the new head coach of York United. Mauro, congratulations on the appointment. We thank you for joining us, and I guess what York United supporters want to know is, what can you tell us about this player?
Well, thank you for the words, but I think Luca is a player that has, a very good high volume around the pitch. He's very active and knows what to do when he has the ball. It shows that he has a natural talent when it comes to his receiving skills, and he's someone that likes to be close to the net. So I think if we can, package that up coming out of a midfielder, I think it's a win-win for all of us, and we're really happy to draft him.
Well, and Mauro, obviously the off season is nascent, and there's announcements that have been coming through the past few days. A young star like Ashola Jimo just being announced he's returning next year. It's such a fun blend at York United with the younger players with upside, the day in, day out pros. What type of culture and environment have you noticed change under Benjamin Mora, and now what you hope to bring next year to York Lions Stadium?
We want to work. We have a pathway that we want to design, not only for the players at York, but for Canadian players. We want to create that pathway into a pro level, and obviously be that trampoline to bigger and higher environments. So at the end of the day, our fundamentals is going to be working, and with the quality that is in the GTA, and not only in the GTA but in Canada, we're at home.
Well, a Woodbridge, Ontario native drafted in the first round by York United today. Mar, we'll see you in the second round. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you in just a little bit. In the interim, back to CPL HQ with Mark Noonan and the 6th overall selection.
Hey, thanks, Adam. With the 6th overall selection in the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Atletico Ottawa select Jason Hartel from Cape Breton.
From the Cape Breton Capers, a 17th player drafted, or a 17th selection from Cape Breton and that factory of talent led by Dino Morley in Nova Scotia. A player that has spent time with York on a U Sports contract. Of course, he will be familiar with Atletico Ottawa. His father, Bruce, the lead equipment manager there. Toronto FC to Academy, Team Ontario Youth, a player that can play centrally in midfield, out in the left side of the back four, a two-way footballer with a work rate and an engine. The next pick will take place by Forge. They are now on the clock. And Drew Becky joins us now, the Director of Youth Development for Atletico Ottawa. Drew, a player that you guys know well, that has an engine, seems a lot like your type of player.
Yeah, it makes total sense, right? He's somebody that's been in our pathway, somebody that understands what it takes the day in, day out. He's a real professional, and we're really excited to get him.
Well, the announcement, Drew, of a new chief executive officer, a search ongoing for the next head coach of Atletico Ottawa, and a season that probably ended a little bit earlier than you all would have wanted, but it seemed as though after missing the playoffs, Atletico Ottawa finds their footing and is going to look to the future. Obviously, your club has done great things with young Canadians in the past. I mean, we just think of what Noah Batney was, excuse me, not Noah Batney, what Tier Walker was able to do, another really strong young defender, but this is a club that likes to keep that pathway going, that pipeline. I mean, you draft a player from Carleton Place, Ontario, and will give an opportunity to improve their game even more.
100%. I think there's a common theme with all the coaches that are on here. We want to develop local talent. We have such a great base of talent in Ottawa, Gatineau, and we need to represent that. We have another opportunity here with Manuel now and JD, a really special opportunity, and we're looking to do that.
I'm sure Atletico Ottawa supporters are elated with the selection and are excited to have a new player to speak about. Drew, thank you for joining us. Off to round 2 is when we will see you next, and back to the commissioner for the next selection.
With the 7th overall pick in the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Forge FC select Paul Akweme from McMaster University.
Well, that is a second Marauder off the board as Ajax Ontario's Paul Akweme goes from Alliance United, the Marauders, to Forge through an excellent university pathway, a ball winner with a high work rate, and a player that obviously Forge can feel confident in developing. You think of some of their selections in years past. One of their, in fact, the final selection from last year's draft, Amadou Kone, a player scouted, discovered, and developed and made an impact with Forge in 2024. This is Jelani Smith joining us now, the Director of Soccer Operations with Forge. Cavalry, you are now on the clock. And Jelani, I just mentioned Amadou Kone. He's not the only one. We saw Garven Metusala earlier in the program. This is a draft where you and your club have found success in discovering that next type of player. With obviously the selection here of Paul, and just in general, what are the attributes Forge are looking for to say, we think you can crack our team?
Listen, Paul's a local selection. We have the opportunity to observe throughout the OUA season. I mean, he's a player who's excellent in possession, can control and dictate the pace of a game, and is forward thinking of a pivot. He's also exceptional defensively, provides a physical presence in the midfield, and has the ability to be quite disruptive and something that we need in the center of the park.
Well, that pivot position has always been a strength of Forge. And you think of some of the role models and players in front of Paul that he might encounter in a Forge training camp. That position that you guys continue to develop so strongly, it really is such a key to the way you want to play. And you list that disruptive physical type of mentality. It seems as though there is a type perhaps for you and Bobby Smirniotis and what you've been able to do with that type of player and develop them into something pretty great.
Yeah, similarly, when Ali joined us, I think he's been fantastic in what we've had. I think holistically, he's been the best midfield in the league. But I think Paul brings a physical presence because, as you know, between Becker, Borges, Noah, they're not the largest bodies in there. And I think in a combative spirit or a force in there would be great to us to add to the team. And coach has been fantastic in developing our draft picks, right from Garvin to Jason in our first season. So adding Paul is definitely a positive here.
Well, congratulations to the Akweme family. Jelani, we'll see you in round number 2. And now for one final pick in round 1, Commissioner Noonan.
With the 8th and final pick of the first round of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Cavalry FC select Harvey Hughes from Cape Breton University. Congratulations.
Well, shortly after a second Marauder goes, a second Caper is selected. Harvey Hughes, a winger and midfielder who has experience in some pretty high levels of youth football. Portsmouth's U13 through U18 development sides, Blackpool U23s, a player that's described as someone who always wants the ball, versatile, highly technical, and of course knows a thing or two about what it takes to play for a strong organization with Cape Breton and Dino Morley. Speaking of strong organizations, the head coach and general manager of the Canadian Premier League champions, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., joins us now. Tommy, this is a strategy I've noticed of Cavalry in the past. Obviously, there is a taste for the local community because there's a dearth of talent, a wealth of talent in Calgary, but you also know English football and you can recognize some talent from abroad. What was it about Harvey that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, he comes from a good pedigree. He's come through the Portsmouth Academy in England and played for Blackpool's under-21s. And within his first season with Cape Breton, he's added 3 goals and 7 assists. He's got a nice left foot. He can play at left wing, left back. He's also shown that he can drift out to the right. Got a good profile and excellent delivery. And we just liked what we saw from him. We had Max Pipegrass from Cape Breton last year, and he's another one that we've kept our eyes on. And Cape Breton do a good job of their recruitment.
Yeah, obviously the off season is still very new, and I'm sure you and the club are rightfully still basking in the championship while also getting back to work and thinking about the CONCACAF Champions Cup draw that will come out in just a few days. But when you think of what the likes of yourselves and Forge in the past, Pacific have done it as well, the opportunity to go play continentally, and that's next up for your group. How much of a maybe not a piece of bait, but a carrot perhaps for these young players to say that environment I could be exposed to is not just a Canadian environment, but an international one?
Well, listen, you look at somebody like a Joel Waterman that had 1 year with us, and then next year he's at MLS. The year after that, he's with the Canadian national team. Moisey Bombito, who's played NCAA in a different aspect, has gone straight in. So these fast tracks can happen for these young lads. So it's how well they adapt, and that's what we're looking to do is see them in training camp. We start early in the new year. We want to see how they adapt to it, and we give them the opportunity. The rest is really up to them. So how they produce it will be determine their future.
Well, Tommy, thank you for joining us. We'll see you in about 20 minutes time for your second round selection. But that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of round number 1 of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, presented by Degree, who have been a fabulous partner of this draft, I think as long, at least, as I've been hosting it. And beyond that, the initiatives that they consistently work with it across not just our league, but Canadian soccer, their support is incredibly appreciated. And I'm sure there will be some players who are probably nervous with anticipation of be going to work that could use some of Degree's products in the not so distant future. So thank you to Degree. And let's look back on round number 1 now, get you caught up to speed and just get it right in front of the page all together at once. Javante Lane, who, by the way, was the 100th selection in the history of the CPL U Sports Draft, goes first to Valour. From there, we have a great selection. Gobu, Pava, Halam, Akatola, Hartle, Akume, and Hughes, 1 through 8. And that exact same draft order will be what we have for round number 2. So I suppose we should officially put Valour back on the clock to make their selection. And we will let you know that to make the picks for round number 2 will be the executive vice president of the Canadian Premier League, Kostas Smirniotis, who joins us now and will be ready momentarily to announce the 9th selection.
Thank you, Adam. With the 9th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Valour FC select Ibrahim Shami from McGill University.
Thank you, Costa, and a huge congratulations to Ibrahim Shami. And I believe this is the very first McGill Redbird to be drafted in the history of the CPL U Sports Draft. A player who's represented Lebanon's U23 Youth International side, AS Blainville, and FC Laval in Ligue 1 Quebec. 15 of 16 matches started this season. As you'll see in the highlights, well, he's a confident passer. He has no problem going to ground, getting stuck into tackles. A fullback more often than not, or is probably his first choice position, and a U Sports All rookie. Daryl Fordyce is back with us. Coach, what can you tell us about Mr. Shami?
Yeah, you just hit it on the head there. He plays with a lot of confidence, composed on the ball, and he reads the game well. So he does all the basics with a lot of quality, and to us, that's a big potential to hopefully play in the CPL and keep improving. So he ticks all the right boxes when it comes to all the basics. He does everything with quality.
Well, I should remind Vancouver that they are on the clock, but also, Daryl, I want to ask you about one of your standouts from last year's draft, and that's Frankie Faccineri, who comes through Windsor City in League One, the University of Windsor, the Lancers, and it took him probably 4 or 5 weeks to get properly blooded and ready and comfortable in this team, but from there, he was almost irreplaceable from that starting 11. So obviously, you and the staff in Winnipeg understand that there are some diamonds in the rough in this draft.
Oh, for sure. It's very important, this draft. Frankie's one of those players that almost fell through the net, and we managed to bring him in, and he hasn't looked back. He's got proper quality. He's a proper leader, and he hasn't looked back, as I said, and strong competitor, and turns up every single day, takes nothing for granted, and he knows that you can be exposed on that pitch if you don't put the work in, and there's no hiding place out there, and he's a guy that, he wears his heart on his sleeve. So really, really good, lucky pick from us last year.
Well, Daryl, on behalf of all of us, we thank you for being the club representative today. Good evening, I suppose, yes, to all of those in Winnipeg joining us today, and good luck in the 2025 season. We'll be curious to see if any of these young boys can crack the team.
Yeah, thanks. All the best, Adam.
Daryl Fordyce, assistant coach of Valour. We go back to the CPL headquarters next, Kostas Myrniotis, for pick number 10.
With the 10th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Vancouver FC select Mehdi Essoussi from the University of Toronto.
That's a third pair complete in the U Sports clubs from which these players are being drafted. Another varsity blue goes Mehdi Essoussi, an Ottawa, Ontario native, experience with Alliance in League One Ontario. Big profile, 6'2", 185, a left footer, can play as the number 6. And we heard Jelani Smith of Forge talk to us a little bit earlier about that physical, imposing presence in the heart of midfield. He can play a little bit of a variety in midfield as well if needed, and 9 of 12 starts for the Blues in 2024. Afshin Gotby is back with us, and the Halifax Wanderers are back on the clock. Coach Gotby, the midfield of yours, you have seen a lot of players come in and audition and make unique roles for themselves, whether that's an Olivier Romans, a Vasco Fry, and of course, Renan Garcia, players that can impose themselves in the game. But I'm wondering if with Mehdi Essoussi, if you maybe see someone that has those attributes, but also might be able to add just a touch more speed perhaps to the position.
Mehdi was recommended to me by a friend, and the moment I started watching his games and some of the highlights, you can see how special of a left foot he has. And there are very few left-footed players I think we find in football in North America. And when I see a left-footed player, I'm immediately paying attention. You notice his handling speed, how calm he is on the ball, and the variety of ways that he can find players, especially in front of him. And he's always looking forward. He's finding the strikers from the midfield position, which I like very much. The other thing that I like about Mehdi is that he can also play in central defense. That gives him some, in my opinion, versatility. And being the captain of a very good university team like Toronto is also a massive plus. So leadership, very, very, I think, ambitious in his football. He wants to play at the highest level possible. And I feel that he's also at the age, I believe, he can come in and contribute immediately.
Well, Afshin, since this is the last opportunity we'll have to speak with you tonight, I suppose I would like to offer you an opportunity to just speak to the supporters and update them on what's been going on. Surely you and your staff are working hard on building this roster for 2025.
Well, I think we made a massive improvement from the first season. We were very close to coming into the playoffs in our second season. We still feel there's a gap between us and the top 4 teams. And I believe in this off season, we're working very hard to find that balance that we need between youth and local and players that can win games for us. And I think finding that right balance is not easy, but we are kind of getting closer to where we need to be. And I think next season, hopefully, will be the breakthrough year for our football club. We still have a long way to go because as you've been watching this league closely, Forge, Calgary, and they are so far ahead of everyone else that we have to catch up. We have to work double time to reach their level of consistency and the results that they've been getting over the years.
Well, thank you, Afshin. Good night. Enjoy the Netherlands. I suppose it's just about time for a cup of tea in bed for you, but we appreciate you being up late to join us in the CPL U Sports Draft.
Thank you very much.
Afshin Godby, the head coach of Vancouver Football Club. Kostas Smirniotis is ready with the next pick.
With the 11th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Halifax Wanderers FC select Joven Mann from the University of British Columbia.
Joven Mann, the U Sports National Championship hero. I suppose the technical name for the award is MVP, but it was his goal in stoppage time of the National Championship final that saw UBC win and end an 11-year hiatus and their 14th U Sports National Championship, completing the double with their Canada West win as well. Burnaby League One, British Columbia experience, Vancouver Whitecaps Academy, the U Sports Tournament MVP, as mentioned, his third goal of the tournament to see the T-Birds lift the trophy. Patrice Geyser is back with us. Pacific is back on the clock. Patrice, so we see your club select a defender. Now you select a player with a nose for goal. What did you like about young man? Apologies, coach. I think we have you on mute. We'll try that again.
I was really impressed watching him at the U Sports Finals. I thought he did a really good job adjusting to playing up front. And when you look at him start of the season, he has the ability to play 6, 8, 9, 10. He can combine. He has a knack to score. He just wants to work. And, you know, he comes from a good background with the Whitecaps and trained with Whitecaps too. So I think he's a player we're really excited about. And, you know, everybody's looking for someone who can be a difference maker in the box.
Well, there's no secret that the strikers are always a sought-after commodity, but with the versatility that so many of these players are described as by their coaches, obviously it's why they've arrived at the level that they were to be in a position to be drafted, but it must make your job exciting and at times easier to take a player that you know is just a good footballer first, that has the IQ, has those intangibles, and you and the staff in a preseason environment, in a training camp environment can really mold to the liking and to what the club needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, like for us, it's important to bring in a player that's had a good background, has good character, and can play our style of football. And I think he has that. So it makes the adjustment for him a lot less. We've heard many say that the level, like Garven was saying, is higher. So we just want him to come in and be comfortable, and we want to be able to support him. But he has a lot of tools, and I'm excited to see him with us.
Well, Patrice, between the TMG signing and the announcement of an addition of, I believe, 1,000 new seats for the Wanderers grounds for 2025, the offseason's off to a blazing hot start. What are some of the other things you want the supporters to know that you and Matt and Mark and Derek are all working on to make this a successful year?
Yeah, I think, listen, we have a great supporters group, and it continues to grow. We want to be able to provide a team that's going to compete. We want to be the hardest team to beat, and you know, we had so much success in our first year with me, and we got to take the learnings from the second year, adjust, and keep growing. I think TMG is going to bring a lot of leadership to an existing group that's already got a strong core, and we just can't wait for the season to start.
Well, congratulations once again to Joven Mann of Surrey, BC, and our thanks to the Halifax Wanderers and Patrice Geyser for joining us this evening for the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft. It is time next for pick number 12. Back to the CPL offices with Kostas Smirniotis.
With the 12th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Pacific FC select Finn Tugwell from the University of Victoria.
The UVic Vikes and Finn Tugwell represented in this year's draft, the 7th edition, a native of North Vancouver, British Columbia. Canada West's Defensive Player of the Year, a U Sports first team All-Canadian, a player with game awareness and vision, and as you can see, filling the red circle of telemetry because he's on the taller end of the scale at 6'3" and will bring an exciting bit of potential to Vancouver Island. That puts York United back on the clock, and James Merriman returns to discuss the selection of Finn Tugwell, a Victorian player and a player that represents the Victoria Vikes. It is a Victoria twofer for you guys this evening, James.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great relationship with UVic. We play them every preseason. We're always tracking and watching their players. And I think Finn, you've seen his progression over the last 3 seasons. He's now a captain at UVic. I think he helped them keep 10 or 11 clean sheets this season. They had a very good defensive record. He's comfortable playing out of the back, good composure at 6'3", good size as well. So big potential. We're excited about him, and it'll be interesting to see him come into our environment.
James, maybe if you could just pull the curtain back for us a little bit. When you speak of, obviously you're playing UVic in this instance on a year-by-year basis, but as you are becoming such an important piece of the footballing community, UVic certainly is as well for a litany of sports in Victoria. But when you're speaking with Coach Larry there at the University of Victoria and the other minor league associations and the collegiate level sports, what are some of the things that you're trying to sort of part of message to, what you're looking for, what you guys can do together to continue to build soccer on Vancouver Island?
I mean, that was the original goal. That's why we brought the club to Vancouver Island. We know football's got a long history here, and we've tried to get more connected with the community. You see more and more players from our youth system, from the Vancouver Island Wave, playing at UVic. I think there's 14 or 15 players now in that team. So it's a team that we want to continue to work with. Larry's been excellent in terms of integrating that partnership and relationship. And so we're really excited about Finn, and hopefully he can push on and force himself into the group.
And James, I'd be remiss not to ask you about the offseason. Obviously, a marquee signing goes out of Pacific to another club. That's not something that is new to you guys, and you always find a way to not necessarily fill the holes, and they're big shoes to fill in Thomas Meyer-Jaguer. But from where you are in the offseason right now to the things you want to accomplish over these next few months, what would you sort of like the fans to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a season that left us wanting more, frustration. We're happy at the end to get into the playoffs, but we wanted more from that. We had a decent run in the Canadian Championship with 2 difficult games against the Whitecaps, and I think we stayed true to our under 21 minutes. I think we were close to 5,000 minutes. So those things we celebrate, and we did well, but I think we know that we have higher standards for ourselves here. We want much more. We need to improve, and that's the focus in the off season.
James, our appreciation and thanks for joining us today. I suppose it's good afternoon to you and the team in Langford as we head back to Costas Myrniotis.
With the 13th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, York United FC select Matthew Fisher from York University.
Well, it is a York sweep for the Nine Stripes, staying with the Lions and selecting Matthew Fisher of Toronto, Ontario, a former Ontario provincial level player, who also has some collegiate experience in the NCAA before returning to the OUA and U Sports. As you'll see in these highlight packs, a player that is quite capable of making those dangerous runs in behind, the link-up type of player. He admitted he's disciplined as well with the defensive responsibilities of the game, and probably has to be at 5'7", 155, still a little bit undersized, but the technical quality very much on display. Let us officially welcome in to discuss this new selection, Mario Stachio. You saw Drew Becky. Drew Becky is next because Atletico.
Was Drew trying to see my player? What's going on here?
I don't know if you guys were having beef when you were making the selections or what, Mauro, but clearly he wants just a little bit more FaceTime. To you and Matthew Fisher, another player, obviously, Carmen Asako, and that connection with quite literally the co-tenants and neighbors for you guys at York Lions, seems to have found another a gem here that has a lot of upside in midfield.
No, I think the biggest thing for us is now we're building that identity of who we want to be and how we want to get to our objectives, and obviously building with the community and looking in our basically our backyard and looking at there's so much talent out there. I think Matthew fits into exactly what we want to do. I think Matthew's a player that, you know, is good in tight spaces, is someone that is very familiar with the goal, and is someone that wants to be active, is someone that is always looking for the ball, always looking for those spaces to be involved. So we're extremely happy to have him.
Well, Mauro, I know it's only been about a month, but you're learning the day in and day out jobs and responsibilities of being a head coach in this league, and just as a head coach of a professional club. What has the experience been like for you so far, and what are some of the daily challenges and opportunities that excite you the most to come into the office?
It's just busy. It's just doing what I love at the end of the day. I think obviously the off seasons are quite long, but like I said, the club now is building that identity. I think we're all together, going towards that goal, and that's the exciting part about this project is York United has kind of been, lack of a better term, all over the place, and now with the ownership and with obviously the sporting director and Jorge, we now see a pathway, and the good thing about it is we're all going together as one, and we have our goals, and we're surely that we're going to accomplish them again together.
And lastly, Mauro, just with this construction, and in some ways it's not necessarily always an overhaul, but there's always a lot to do in the offseason. No wonder all you and your colleagues are so busy here. But you have players that need contracts, you have decisions to make on options by the end of the year, draft picks being selected today, and just a lot of decisions to make before the holiday break and then right back to work. What would you say are maybe some of the biggest objectives for York United Football Club this offseason?
I think the biggest thing is to find our identity, is to continue to grow what we have been doing in the past year. Obviously, York wants to be a club that wants to be at the top and wants to be competitive and wants to be competing every week. You guys saw what we did today, especially with the three re-signings and Kimbo, Shola, and Elijah. Each one of them brings different type of experiences. Each one of them bring a different type of personality, but all of them have the mindset that they want to win, they want to compete, and they want to do better. So that's the way that we want to grow. That's the way we want to build. And you'll be hearing soon in the next couple of weeks about what we're doing.
Well, a couple of more prospects to add to the list for you tonight as well. Good evening, Mauro. Thank you for joining us, and good luck with the offseason. To Kostas Smirniotis at the CPL offices for the next pick in tonight's draft.
With the 14th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Atletico Ottawa select Adam Ngoran from Carleton University.
Well, it's becoming an annual tradition within a tradition, with Atletico Ottawa going to Carleton University for one of their selections. 14th overall in 2025, Adam Ngoran from Gatineau and OSU in Ligue 1 Quebec, a dynamic and versatile wingback that is attack-minded and has a nose for goal, as we are seeing on display in the clips here as well. Obviously, that connection with Kwesi Loney and the Carleton Ravens does wonders in helping the scout and makes it a little bit easier for Drew Becky to decide that this is the player that the club wants to go with. I know you're eager to be back, Drew. I'm flattered, and I'm always grateful to have some time to speak with you. Now that it's officially your turn and Forge's turn on the clock, what can you tell us about Adam Ngoran?
We've seen Adam quite a bit, right? We've seen him through OSU Atletico, seen him at Carleton. It's another no-brainer for us. Somebody who works hard every single day, shows up, just an ultimate professional in our eyes. And you can see with the video here, he has unique talent on the ball to go at people, and we're excited to see him take the next step.
Well, we've spoken a lot, Drew, over the years, over the season, even tonight with the various representatives about that connection to community. And for you, we see York United with their League One Ontario club this season that will participate. You guys had that connection with the OSU Atletico, as you mentioned. Maybe just wondering if you could speak to me, to the audience, about that partnership a little bit more, and just what you've learned from each other, these last few years.
Well, having somebody like Vladan Versecki as our coach, we have Stephen O'Kane in our pathway. Those two have done an unbelievable job to support myself, JD, new CEO. Right, this is something that we needed to build for many years. We needed this pathway, and we still have a lot of work to do. That's no doubt. But those two individuals specifically have a great name here. They've grown players in our system. We have a lot of players that come into our first team training that have showed well. And if we look back at the first 5 years of the club, we've established ourselves, trying to find success. Now we have another opportunity to take the next step and promote young talent and build young talent, not only for the Canadian Premier League, but for the national team. And that's really important for the future of our game in Canada.
And Drew, just lastly, before you speak of that success, and I know how close you guys came to participating in another Canadian Premier League final this season with the postseason run. There's no doubt that this is an ambitious club that you represent, that you work for, that wants to be in those title-deciding matches, that wants to get that opportunity to go on and play in CONCACAF. When you take us on the pitch, because you've quite literally played on it and now worked about assembling a roster for it, what are the objectives for Atletico Ottawa next season, and how is that process of looking for the new coach and finding the right pieces going as you begin this offseason in earnest?
Well, it's an everyday thing, right? Having somebody like Manuel come in with a vast experience in Puebla, somebody who has a unique perspective on being a player himself, right? From obviously an amazing footballing country in Mexico. We do have a vast set of skills from Atletico Madrid, Atletico San Luis, the Atletico family that gives us a little bit of an edge in scouting, but also it gives us a name in world football. We're looking all around the world for a coach at this moment. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday interview thing. And we're excited to see where that goes, right? The person needs to have an understanding of what is Canadian football, where we're at in the world, where we want to be in this world, understanding, what we are as a country. And we're really focused on finding that. But going forward, we have a lot of work to do, and we're excited to compete again in 2025. And always our objective is to win a title. We were very close this year. Pretty disappointed in a lot of those aspects. But again, we have a new opportunity and we have to look forward.
Well, the Director of Youth Development for Atletico Ottawa, Mr. Drew Becky. Two great selections tonight, Drew. We're excited to see if the gentlemen whose names were called can crack into 2025's team. We're down to 2 picks left, Kostas Smirniotis. Who's the penultimate?
With the 15th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Forge FC select Maxime Filion from Université de Montréal.
That's right, Les Carabins and Maxime Filion, a Ottawa, Ontario native, so that keeps a little continuity from our most recent pick. An RSEQ All-Star, 6 goals and 1 assist with Montreal this season, and he's an imposing striker at 6'2", brings that physicality on top of the ability to finish with his head, as you're seeing, with both feet, as you're seeing, and that cleverness, that touch, that desire to go for goal. And owning his craft more so with this Ottawa South United as well as with Les Carabins. It's Jelani Smith, the Director of Soccer Operations, joining us once again to discuss the selection. What is the instant scouting report, or what blanks can you color in for me there, Jelani?
He's truly a number 9. He scored 9 goals in 11 games, so it's no secret he's the ability to put the ball in the back of the net. And it's certainly a spot, a necessity for our club. I mean, it's no secret we've had a pretty unorthodox year at the striker position. Tyrone Campbell and Jay Ham's with injuries, and obviously a great period with revelation of Kwesi Poku at number 9. And but it was evident there was a bit of absence at that position or down the stretch in the playoffs here. And Matt Seams had great movements, great instinct in the box. So he's a player I'm looking forward to bringing into camp.
Well, just before we get to the 16th and final selection with Cavalry, who are now on the clock, Jelani, my last question for you is a simple one. There's some variation of it every single year, but we understand, as the Canadian soccer media, the supporters watching as well, where the bar is and where the expectations are for Forge this season. So despite nearly winning the double and accomplishing a lot of things and a lot of big pieces of news, like you mentioned, the sale of Kwesi Poku in the offseason, you go into next season, hungry and motivated again to get back and get that double for the first time, and CONCACAF's just a few minutes away. So when you think to 2025, what are some of the things that you are most looking forward to and give you that excitement for another year at this?
I think our club loves being and competing in CONCACAF, and it's right around the corner. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to the draw on the 10th here in a week's time. But yeah, I think globally is a fantastic season for our guys, and just building on that. I mean, looking to probably advance in CONCACAF, put ourselves back in the hot for the opportunity to compete for a final in the CAN Champs, and then get that double.
Well, Jelani, thank you. Good evening for joining us and doing a little bit of my job as well, promoting the fact that the CONCACAF Champions Cup draw is on Tuesday. Okay, one more piece of business. Kostas Smirniotis with the final pick of this year's draft.
With the 16th overall pick of the 2025 CPL U Sports Draft, Calvary FC select Owen Antonuk from the University of Calgary.
Owen Antonuk will round out our field of 16 young men drafted today. Formerly of Vancouver Whitecaps Academy, he had a loan stint with Atletico Ottawa back in 2022. A left winger that pitched in 12 goals for Ramon Mifflin's Dinos this year. A Canada West first team and U Sports second team All-Star with Windsor City experience as well in League One Ontario. Remarkably, 33 goal contributions in the last 16 months in League One Ontario and League One Alberta. Tommy Wheeldon Jr., that's a pretty proficient attacker that you've just drafted.
Yeah, he's a good lad. Obviously known him for years coming through the Calgary scene. He's a player that's played for my dad when he was at Calgary Blizzards and my brother when he was at Calgary Foothills. So we've known him, we've tracked him. He's scored at every single level. He's had a great season for Dinos. What was it? 8 goals, 5 assists. But as you said, he's also scored at League One level prolifically in both Ontario and in Alberta. So very clever player, can play on either wing, can play in the 10 spot. And as you can see from these actions here, knows where the back of the net is. And I think that's important.
And Tommy, just a few weeks ago, I was asking you about what you've noticed in terms of the continued visibility of Cavalry as the beacon for the club, for the city of Calgary right now with footy, with the Wild coming in next year as well. But that connection to the community, I imagine winning a final and having that memory for the supporters and the young players in attendance makes a world of difference. But that's now 10 selections from you over these 7 editions of this draft from either Alberta, Mount Royal, or Calgary. What makes Calgary soccer so special and something that makes you feel confident to keep going back to that well?
Well, Alberta has a lot of talent. We believe in our own talent. And if you're not looking within your community first to help support it and create the opportunities, what's the point of talking about homegrown players? And, I'd consider Owen that because he's come out of the Calgary minor soccer scene. He's playing for a Calgary university team. And it's important to make sure you do that because then you can go outside for whether it's international players or other domestic players. And as we've seen with Harvey Hughes, gives us something different as a depth piece. But Owen's a player that we think is very talented and deserving of this opportunity. And we're looking forward to seeing him in training camp.
Well, that is a Myroniuk and an Antonuk for us to get used to calling and differentiating. It's an important distinction, Tommy Wheeldon Jr., the head coach and general manager of Cavalry, who joins us. Thank you. Good afternoon, Tommy, and we'll be talking to you very shortly. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
Tommy Wheeldon Jr., the last man to make a selection in this 2025 CPL U Sports Draft presented by the fantastic folks at Degree. Let's recap the draft, shall we? Going through all of the players selected, starting at number 1, where the TMU Bold had their very first overall selection. Javante Lane, Henri Gobu would follow, and in order, Matthew Pava, Nicholas Halam, Luca Achitola. Jason Hartle would go number 6 to Atletico Ottawa. Paul Ekume to Forge, and Harvey Hughes rounded out round number 1. Ibrahim Shami would go next to Valour with pick number 9. That would be followed by Mehdi Asusi. Jovine Mann would go to the Halifax Wanderers. Finn Tugwell had his name called by Pacific FC, with Matthew Fisher to the Nine Stripes, Adam Ngoran to Atletico Ottawa, Maxime Filion and Owen Antonuk, picks 15 and 16. And by my reckoning now, that is 115 selections in the history of the CPL U Sports Draft. Always an exciting day. It's an interesting day because depending on your perspective, it's either the final big event of 2024, but more so, not just because of its title, but it's the first big event of 2025, where the Canadian Premier League will be preparing for its 7th season. And as Jelani Smith told us just a few minutes ago, on Tuesday, both Cavalry and Forge will find out their opponents for CONCACAF Champions Cup, which means we have a few more episodes of OneSoccer today to do, and then it's buttoning things up for the season. And from there, it's a look ahead to continental competition once again with 3 Canadian clubs, of course, the Vancouver Whitecaps as well. And speaking of those Vancouver Whitecaps, we've spoken about this draft and the opportunities it can lead to, from the Whitecaps Academy to drafted players that have played in continental competition in the Canadian Championship, like Javante Lane at BMO Field this season, just continuing to show the increasing number of opportunities for the young Canadians in this league of today and of tomorrow. 16 called today, with an opportunity to get the invitation to go to preseason camp and try to crack the team. But for those who may not have heard their name called and were hoping to, the reminder that there are multiple pathways now, and there's some valuable insight from 8 of the most important people in Canadian professional soccer right now on the attributes they're looking for and the ways to get recognized and to get those opportunities. They are never far away. My thanks to the entire CPL crew behind the scenes, producing the content, Mark Noonan and Kostas Smirniotis as well, for putting the announcements together, letting us know who the new 16 players are, and our executive producer, Christian Jack, for another successful CPL U Sports Draft presented by Degree. Thank you so much, Canada, for joining us today. We're excited to continue to get to know these young men, tell their stories, and introduce them to you further. But for now, we say good evening, good afternoon, and talk to you very, very soon. Our thanks finally for watching the CPL U Sports Draft presented by Degree.
Easy as can be, it's Joel Waterman. Zach Verhoeven with a blistering blast.
And Frankie Fascineri has found the back of the net.